Woohoo! We are live, and this is Geometry Bites, a little bit of geometry for your day. And I've got my friends here because it is always more fun to do math with your friends. And we're going to be talking about angles, getting oppositional. Yay! So, what does that mean? Well, we got to talk about a little bit of vocabulary. So, couple of vocabulary terms for you, actually 3 of them, not really just a couple, so a few, I guess, a few terms for you. The first term is complementary angles. Oh, you look very nice today. Oh, so do you. Oh, la, 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 la. No, complementary angles are angles that added together make up a 90-degree angle. The sum of their measures is 90 degrees. Ooh, so the sum of their measures is 90. So in other words, 25 plus 65 equals, woohoo, 90. So when stuck together, you've got a right angle. And this little square in the corner, if no one's ever told you, that little square denotes that this is, in fact, a 90-degree angle. That's what that looks like. Okay, related, but much larger, in fact, twice as large, are supplementary angles. Now, I know you're already thinking, oh, great, you named them 2 words that sound very similar. And the answer is, I did not name them that. Someone else did. You know, not the player, it's the game, or something like that. Supplementary angles are angles that, when added together, make up a 180-degree angle. In other words, this is a line. If we look at a line, to get all the way from one side, here I'll put a little dot there, one side all the way to the other side, that's 180 degrees. So this is flat. And you can imagine if I took 2 90-degree angles and stuck them together, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this very well, but if you stuck them together, you would end up with a straight line effectively. So you can see that in our example, I've got a 45-degree angle and a 135-degree angle. And if you add them together, 45 plus 135 equals 180. Isn't that awesome? Here, I'll put a box around it. When you put a box around it, it makes it so much more fancy. What do you think? Ooh, already so fancy, right? Wow. No expense was spared from this production, I got to tell you. Vertical angles, or vertically opposite angles, and I'm going to tell you, I've also heard it as opposite angles, are angles that are formed by 2 intersecting lines or line segments. This is one of the weirder concepts, but basically, if I look here at this little angle right there, the vertical angle or the vertically opposite angle would be that one right there. And I can already see, I printed this out, but the letters are too small, so I know it's hard to see. And then this angle and this angle are vertical angles. Now, I'm going to ask my seafaring friends for a little help with this, because if I use their, rather than the puppets, but the puppet sticks, I don't know what puppet sticks are called. But if you can imagine, like if you see, if we look just at these 2 angles right here, notice as I move the sticks, the 2 angles that are opposite each other, ooh, get bigger at the same time and get smaller at the same time. Now the angles that are right next to each other are actually supplementary angles. So what the heck am I talking about? Let me point it out. So if I take a very convenient little card and I'll mark that this is A degrees, this is C degrees, this is B degrees, and this is D degrees. This is what's written very, very small. I stole this image from Wikipedia. If I look at A and C, I'll notice that A and C are actually supplementary because those 2 angles go together to make this line or line segment. A and D are supplementary angles. D and B are supplementary angles. B and C are supplementary angles. It's very cool. But when we're talking about vertical angles, A and B are going to be equal. If this is A degrees up here and this is B degrees down there, A equals B. And the same thing, these two angles that are across from each other, vertical from each other, opposite from each other, D equals C. So we've got these three sets of definitions. Complementary is 90 degrees, supplementary is 180, and then vertical angles, which are just a treasure trove of truth. So we're going to take these and actually fill in some angles on the next problem. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, this is very exciting, isn't it? This is the sort of thing that if someone is talking to you and you don't really want to talk to them anymore, you could bring this out and be like, hey, let's do some math. And that will scare away, 85, 90% of people. Unfortunately, in the event that you're actually talking to a secret mathematician, a mathematician secret agent, you're going to be stuck because that person will be like, oh my gosh, I will totally talk to you about this. So what in the heck is going on here? Well, I've got a bunch of labels, K degrees, Y degrees, W degrees, X degrees, Z degrees, and then I've labeled this angle 35 degrees. And then I've got, if you can see, 3 lines, and I'm not sure if this is easy to tell in the video. This line 1, L sub 1, is actually purple. And let me go ahead, because I'm realizing that the colors probably are not coming through in the video. So this is L sub 1, this is purple. L sub 2 is this one, and it's blue. And those two lines, L1 and L2, are perpendicular. So the two lines that I've colored in blue and purple are perpendicular. What does that mean? Well, that means that anytime the two lines meet, you've got a 90-degree angle. So in other words, this is 90 degrees right there. And so our job is to figure out what all the measure of all the angles are, given that this little guy is 35. Okay, so let's go through what we can deduce from this. I like it. It's kind of a puzzle. So first thing I see is that K, this one that looks like that, happens to be right there where the right angle is. K is got to be 90 because it's that whole angle there. That's K right there. That makes sense because it's the angle that goes from L1 to L2. Okay, that's nice. So I can, and in fact, I'll try not to take us to Smeary Town, but I can kind of draw in where we are in the picture. Oh, I took us to Smeary Town. Sorry about that. And so I'm going to call this K right there. That's that one. Okay. So K we've got is 90 degrees because that is a right angle. Now, notice that if you reverse the letters, you get it's a right angel, which is slightly different. Or a right whale, which is completely different. Okay, so we can approach this a couple of different ways because there are all sorts of things going on in this beautiful, really cool picture. For example, I happen to notice that if I look at, let's see, how do I do it? Let me borrow my friend's sticks for a second. If those are my two lines, L1 and L2, and if I ignore L3, I see that K and X appear to be vertical angles because X is also the angle between L2 and L1. So I think that X, which is this one, with the blue and the Blue there, purple here. I believe that this is also a right angle. Why? Well, two things. We know that these two lines are perpendicular, so every place where they meet is a right angle, but it's also the x, this angle here and this angle here, these two angles are vertical angles. So x also is 90, either because of right angles or because of the perpendicular, or because it is opposite k, or vertical. K and x form vertical angles. Okay, so we've already got 2/5 of the letters figured out. Woo! And that wasn't too terribly hard. Now it depends on what sort of problems you'd like to work on. So, for example, what you might want to do is you might be interested in, because I see that this angle right here is the pink one is 35 degrees. And I wonder to myself, what angle would make up a vertical angle pair with that? And the answer is, if you take a look at the graph, I've got this line, the image, this line and this line. So this angle is opposite this angle. Do you see that? Those two are opposite each other. So this is W. So I'm looking at that. And one of these lines is the blue line. And one of the lines is, I just left black to make it easier to see, line 3. So line 2 and line 3. And I've got over here and over here, I claim those two are vertical angles or opposite angles. If this is 35 degrees, then this must also be 35 degrees. So W is 35. So I've got 90 up here. I've got 90 down here. I've got, what do I have? I've got, and then W is 35. So now I just have to figure out Y and Z. And you notice something cool about Y and Z? They are both created with L1 intersecting L3. So these two are also vertical angles. So right here, this angle and this angle are vertical angles. You see that? See how they come out of the same two lines? So if I figure out what Y is or what Z is, then I'm good to go, because I'll know the other, right? So Y and Z are equal. Okay, so Y and Z, those two measures are going to be equal. But how are we going to figure out what's left? Well, you got a couple of options. It depends on whether you like complementary angles or supplementary angles. Now, how do I ever remember the difference between these two? Well, years and years and years of math. Or complementary comes before supplementary in the alphabet, so it's smaller. That's the other way I remember it, to be honest. So complementary is a right angle. Supplementary is a straight line. We'll notice that Y, and I'm going to use the supplementary one, forms a supplementary angle. And I'm a little bit off. I'm sketching it, but I'm a little bit off. There's my purple. There's my blue. And then let's see, I marked this angle right here. This one, I'm just drawing the piece of where K is. This is K degrees, and that's 90 degrees. And I was told this was 35 degrees. And you see how I've got this straight line here? If I've got a straight line, then these three angles going together have to give me 180. So this is Y degrees. So in other words, Y plus 90 plus 35 have to equal 180 because they're supplementary. Can I fit that in there? Probably not. Will it stop me from trying? No, never. Ha ha ha. Wahaha. There we go. Can we solve for y? Absolutely. Y plus 125 equals 180. So y equals, calculate, 2 from the 5 from the 0, carry the 1. Oh my goodness. So we're going to end up with, I think, 55. Do we think that's correct? So y equals 55, which means the angle opposite it. These two are vertical angles. So if y is 55 degrees, what is z? Z is also 55 degrees. Woohoo! Now, can we check this? Were there other ways to do this? Absolutely. Absolutely. For example, I know that these two, the blue and the purple, are at right angles, right? So right here, this whole thing right here is complementary. These two angles are complementary angles. So I know that where did my magical piece of paper go? I've put it somewhere else. So if we ignore everything else and we just look at these two angles, these two have to give me a 90-degree angle. So the question is, does 35 plus 55 equal a right angle? 35 plus 55 is 90. It does, so that checks out. That is another way we could have figured out what z is. If I know this is 35 and the whole thing has to be a right angle, then I can figure out that this has to be 55, because 90 minus 35 is 55. Could I check it another way? Absolutely. We see the same thing happen over here. Over here, we also have a right angle. Notice that there are going to be 4 right angles. How many degrees in going all the way around in a circle? A full circle. If I go all the way around back to myself, do you know how many degrees that is? We're going to go around in a 360-degree angle. If I just go halfway, that's 180 degrees. If I just go a quarter of the way, that's 90 degrees. Okay. So do these two give me a 90-degree angle? And the answer is 55 plus 35. Absolutely. So then what's the granddaddy way of all to check? Well, what we can do, and this one I'm not going to try to do in my head. Oh, get out of the light, Carol Ann. Okay, I'm going to start with the 35. And I'm going to move counterclockwise. I know that's a little bit weird, but that was the way I was trained in trigonometry. You're welcome to go in either direction. But in trigonometry, we're going to move oddly. I know it feels weird, counterclockwise. So I'm going to move around to the left. I'm going to do 35 plus 90 plus 55 plus 35 plus 90 plus 55. Oh my gosh, it's the moment of truth. Are you guys ready? 360! We did it! We are victorious! We are the champions! Dance party! Ooh, 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 ooh. So, if you go all the way around in a circle, you should get to 360 degrees. So you can double check your math there. You guys are awesome. You guys are brilliant. Let me pull this all back out of the way so you can see all the problems in case you wanted a quick, there we go, screenshot of all the math. Woohoo. As always, feel free to ask me questions if any of this doesn't make sense, or if you want to see more. Math on, guys. Math on.